This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here, leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
That is such a cool song. Hey, it's another groovy day, and that's because when I wake up in the morning, I make it that way. So I start my day, all is groovy. I say hello to the lamppost. And then if anything happens during the day, I always just think back. Hey, I started off a groovy day. I can change at any time, and it usually works out, and things transform and transgress, and hey, all is groovy. That's the way the day ends as well. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. As always, before I get started, and we're gonna learn a lot about this today, but I always like to get myself centered, situated, grounded. And I do that first by thinking about what it is that I get power from. What is that I connect to? That could be God, Allah, the dude, the tree, whatever it is. Nature is a great way to get connected. Just think about that. Focus on that. Let's take in a deep breath. All the way down. And let that breath out with just a and let your essence flow right up through your heart center, out of your throat chakra, out of the speaker box, and out into the universe. Let's do that one more time. But this time, think about your dreams, visions, and goals. What is it that you aspire to be, do, have? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Let's take in another deep breath. And again, another big and let that just flow out of your speaker box, out into the universe. And for sure, think about this. Allow the universe the opportunity to make those come true for you. There you have it. It's kind of quick, but this is a great practice for you to do. And we're probably going to talk about that today with our guest, even more of getting connected, getting grounded, and just, well, we learned last show, just stop.
That's right.
Just stop. Just stop this craziness going on. As always, I have my co-host with me today, Jackie Bailey, my good friend Jackie Bailey. Hi, Jackie.
Hi. You know, when you first started that little meditation and you were talking about getting in touch with nature, nature is a great thing to get in touch with. I thought about my little squirrel friend here.
Your what?
My squirrel friend. My studio here is on a corner of two fairly busy streets, and there's a power pole on the corner just outside on my little yard there, and then there's a couple of trees out front, and there's a squirrel that I have discovered lives up in that power pole. There's a hole up at the top of the pole, and I've noticed that the squirrel will climb up the tree and then go across the lines to that pole and go up into that little hole. So it must have little babies up there. So I named that squirrel Volt because my pet squirrel Volt. Well, that was hard to say. and so you said nature's a great thing to get in touch. I think, well, Volt comes to visit me every day and kind of sits in the tree for a second. And
that's very cool. And so you haven't been on your spirit guide, spirit animal website to find out what?
I haven't, only because he or she, I'm guessing it's a she, has been here for a while, and I just hadn't thought about maybe she's here for a reason to remind me of something that I should do.
I have lots of squirrels, and there's different forms of squirrels, and they're running across my deck and across the railing and up the tree, driving my cats nuts, and my dogs bark at them. And it's kind of fun. It is really kind of fun. And then I didn't realize this, Jackie, but we live in the Pacific Northwest and we have flying squirrels, believe it or not. We do. And I didn't know that until my cat drug one in the house.
Wow. Wow.
He was bouncing off the walls and oh my gosh, it was
maybe
crazy.
You have a flying cat then too.
Well, I have flying dogs and flying cats, that's for sure.
Well, I remember we had a foreign exchange student long time ago from Mexico City. She and our daughter were both 15 years old, and we took her to a park one day, and she was just intrigued with the squirrels. Because she said, in Mexico, you don't see squirrels except in zoos. I'm like, really? They're like vermin around here.
We are gifted in the Pacific Northwest. It's a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net. All the links that we're going to talk about and the link to our guest's website is there already. You can go and check it out. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter once a week, and it highlights who's coming on the show and who's been on the show, along with Jackie's blog post, the famous blog post. We're going to make this a famous Life Mastery Radio Jackie blog post about the show. She gets some great insight from our discussions, and it's really cool to read back through it and review. And sometimes I think, wow, did I really say that? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I've been thinking about what you commented on last week, which is maybe we should write a book from all these blog posts. I've been thinking about that and going, you know what? That might be actually kind of cool. It would be another round of promoting the wonderful guests we've had and the programs they have and so forth. But it would also be great insight in just all the things that we've learned by people using their voices and sharing their talents with the world. So it'd be a great lesson to learn.
Yeah. Jackie, my knower knows. So when I come up with these kinds of things. Let's see what else. Oh, Jackie and I's book is there on the website. Let's see, what am I looking for here? I'm looking for an introduction. Wendy, our guest today is Wendy De Rosa, and she has written an amazing book. And I'm surfing around so I get it exactly. Becoming an Empowered Empath. And we're going to talk about today what that looks like. This book is really amazing. It takes a person, how do I want to say it? It takes a person in deep on maybe what they're feeling, maybe what they could feel. And I lost my introduction. If you can't tell, Wendy, I am so sorry.
Oh, juggling. Trying to keep the balls in
Wendy,
there.
welcome to the show, my friend. Is there anything I missed that we should know about you? You've been an empath for a very, very long time. You've worked with many people. Your credentials are as long as my arm, and some of the comments that I've read are just out of this world. So I don't know how much higher of a pedestal I could put you on. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. Sometimes I think the credentialing and the bio and everything is wonderful for an introduction, but we get into it, and that's where the real,
I know Jackie and I are trained Toastmasters, so this is kind of a
introduction.
Embarrassing no not to have the intro.
You know what? As Todd was reciting the title of your book, Wendy, The Empowered Empath. I didn't think about it before as I was perusing your book, but I've always been under the assumption that empaths are uniquely empowered already just by the empathic talents they have. And, I'm sort of new to the empathic pool.
But Wendy, don't let her fool you. She is an empath.
Dived in a little bit. But I've never thought of myself as an empath. But but I've always imagined people like you with so much power. Not necessarily that they could have power to rule the world or anything, but that they were just so much better in touch with themselves and with other people. That I was always a little bit envious of that. So the fact that your book really does focus on some tremendous chakra sensitivities. And we've had guests on the show that talk about chakras, and we've had guests on the show that have been empaths and talk about that. But I don't recall anyone until now who actually has connected those two powerful centers together to say they depend on each other. And so I'm really excited about our discussion today, because you go into some pretty good and deep looks at those first three energy centers and chakras. So, but maybe we could just start with your story. How did you get here? Because you haven't always known that you were empathic, right?
Right. And I wouldn't, yes. And it's interesting because I wouldn't have called myself an empath, probably prior to a few years ago, because what has been more my experience, sort of since in my adult life, was being an intuitive healer, an intuitive energy healer. But when I started, so I can tell you my story, but when I started to really understand the template of the chakras and how it relates to all the facets of intuition in our body, I started to realize, well, actually, I am empathic, and there are other aspects that are going on too, and I can say more about that. But I grew up in a family. I grew up on the East Coast in a family of 8 children. I was the second oldest girl, second oldest child, and I just was very, very sensitive. I mean, what I know now, and I didn't know then, is, the empathic sense is the first sense that develops in the womb. And so we all come into this world very sensitive. And by empathic, I mean, we have the ability to feel through our sentient body. And so most children are sensitive. It's just that we start to have life experiences at a pretty young age that form our conditioning, and we either develop. It goes one way or another, from that point on. Really, I was, I gained weight at the age of 6 years old. I picked up everything that was going on around me. I developed depression, anxiety as a child. By the time I was 12, I was going to work to help pay for the bills at home. I was babysitting. I worked throughout my high school years. I didn't have much playtime. As a kid, I was very overly responsible and attentive to everything that was needed in my life, and it did it. I disconnected from myself. I didn't have much of developing a sense of me, and instead my existence was really depending on taking care of other people. And I developed anxiety, depression. By the time I was 19, I had a nervous breakdown. And that was really, out of that, there was a divine intervention that I talk about in my book, that sort of set me on the path of discovering my gift. But until then, it was pretty anxiety provoking.
I hear that so much. And it almost, I think about this a lot, Wendy, is that these these traumatic experiences that we experience in our lives, because it happened to me. I was on the bottom, but that's what blossoms us into, the messengers that we are today, the light beings that we are. I don't think if I hadn't been an alcoholic and abused alcohol, I would be where I'm at today. Right.
Yeah, I believe that. Absolutely. As hard as it was for a good portion of my young life, I'm grateful for the overcoming that came out of it, the strength building, the stamina, the wisdom that came out of it.
Do you think, and I think about this a lot too, do you think people have to experience that to get to that point? Or, your book is a perfect tool that will help guide people into understanding their innate capabilities, really. And I think everybody is an empath or has an empathetic abilities. Did I say the right word? Is that the right word, Jackie? Empathic capabilities. And it's just a matter of like reading a book like yours and starting to get in tune with that. And you get into journaling and how that gives you that feedback loop into what you're feeling, hearing, seeing, and doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, do we have to go through the struggle? I think there's a part of some of it has to do with consciousness evolution and growing up in eras of time when our survival depended on us existing a particular way. And when we were children growing up, nobody was talking about being an empath. No one was talking about emotional responsibility or, having the boundaries. Honey, these are my feelings, not your feelings. I mean, that wasn't part of our parental conditioning, and I'm making big generalizations here, but we've learned to reparent or parent sensitive, empathic children because of what we've been through, basically years of therapy or whatever we might have sought out to try and understand our own childhood and what we needed as children. And so, I think as now more empaths are sort of coming out of the empathic closet or starting to find out that they are, because we are, we're healing from so much trauma.
Is this part of the evolution of let's just call it the new man or the new woman or the new human, I guess is what we would say?
I would say this. I mean, it's usually something I would say at the very end of my talk, but I'll say it now, which is I do believe empaths are leading the way in many ways. I mean, I really believe we've been raised in this paradigm where you children aren't meant to be seen. We get this messaging, we're not meant to be, we're meant to be seen, not heard. There's a non-transparency about our emotions, our feelings, our truth. Empaths are, empaths, they're not about having the surface conversations. They're about going deep. They're about having care and empathy and having connected relationships and, transforming the world through their creativity. I mean, they're not for sweeping things under the rug anymore and just going on. So
right. And that leads me to a lot of connecting with this and understanding this is a lot of introspection personally on, our traumas or how we were raised, what we bought into, what we believe, but we never remember buying into that belief.
Yeah. No, we are raised in our, I call it our marinade. I call it our root chakra marinade. Where that's our developmental 0 to 7 years old time frame where we are soaking up everything, whether it's said to us, whether it's modeled for us, whether it's a parent is saying it to themselves without even verbalizing it to us. We are soaking up a lot of beliefs and conditioning in ways that we're going to exist and survive in this family of origin.
Yeah.
Now, Wendy, do you think, first of all, what's the difference in your definition between having these intuitive sensitivities and being empathic? Is there a difference, or is it just a different level of sensitivity to be an empath? Because it seems to me like empaths, because they are sensitive, they can really feel a lot of icky stuff, right?
Yeah. So I think what I'd like to do is explain a little bit about the profile of an empath. Is that okay?
Go for it. Yeah,
the framework of what happens with an empath, which is that some people will say, I'm an empath, therefore I take on the energy of others. And we need to separate out that an empath is someone who feels the energy of others in a space or interpersonally or in the collective. And they literally feel that through their sensory system. And typically it's vibrational energy, which also means it can be emotional energy, anger, grief, sadness, something, that's something like a vibratory energy, which typically can be emotions. An overly empathic person, someone who feels that that energy has crossed over their boundary, which we have this auric field. So our our body doesn't end at the skin. We have this other, sort of 12 to, 12 to 18 inches, depending on a person. It depends on the person, around our energy body is another level of our being. And when that energy crosses into the field of our body, now we have become overly empathic. We have taken it into our system. One of the reasons that happens is because there is, I'm going to give a little bit of an energetic background or an energetic anatomy lesson here in very brief. We have a central channel in our body. We have a grounding cord that connects from the sides of our hips. It goes deep into the earth. We have 7 spinal chakras in the center of our body. The energetic system underlays the nervous system. It underlays the physical anatomy, and we don't learn about this in school.
Right.
This is additional. This is spiritual in some schools, in Eastern philosophy in Eastern countries. Perhaps there is some, I don't know, but this energetic anatomy experience in the body is ultimately the presence of our essence, our truth, our light that we come into this world with. If we are not radiating in the center of our being because there is wounding in the energetic system, then that wounding creates maybe concave, it creates contractions, it creates powerlessness in our body to where we are not holding our boundaries, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. And so the energy crosses over into our field because there's something going on in the center of our being, in our chakras, that is giving the signal out that I am not whole here and radiating. And that takes us deeper into the question, well, what's going on here in the center of the body that's causing this? And so much of the book is about that exploration of what's happening in the body.
So that's the trauma. And being an energy healer, that's what you do, is to take a person through that process. Maybe you could explain that process a little bit of exploring that. Why am I so blocked? What is it that's allowing this to come in? Is it conscious awareness, Wendy, or is it a body aware, or is it a whole self awareness?
So it's layered. It's complicated. so here's a profile that happens. We are raised in a time period. Most of us have been raised, somewhere in the, 20th century here, where we have we've been raised in environments where the system around us, call it maybe the patriarchal system or the system of our existence that we're raised in, doesn't necessarily nurture the development of self, is what I'll call it. So I'm going to go into first 3 chakras, or first 2 actually, because this is what happens in the energy body, is that we are born into our physical experience, our physical body. That 0 to 7 years old in the energy body terms is the root chakra developing years, which I mentioned earlier. What that means is that between 0 to 7 years old, we are developing our physical construct of how we're going to survive in the world. That means we're developing physically. We're developing our bonding and attachment to our family of origin and how we're going to survive. We are also developing our sense of safety and security in this physical experience on this planet. And our sense of safety and security inside ourselves is going to help nurture our sense of self and our deeper ability to trust ourselves, trust this world. If I'm a sensitive being, and I'm raised in an environment where safety is compromised on some level. Maybe there's yelling and screaming. Maybe there's alcoholism. Maybe there's abandonment. Maybe there's the teachings that children are meant to be seen, not heard. And if you cry, you're going to go to your room. I can't handle your emotions. I can't handle your anger. I'm going to punish you for your anger instead of finding out why.
Or there's a really good one. Big boys don't cry.
Big boys don't cry. Men have to toughen up. So these are all conditions. This was normal conditioning. But to an inherent sovereign being who's being raised, who's coming into this world with an empathic sensitivity, or just simply sensitive, what we're getting is, I'm wrong, I'm bad, something's wrong with me, and therefore I don't feel safe to be me. So what happens in the energy body is the root chakra contracts. The second we start to feel that it is not safe for me to be me, and I cannot belong here in myself. I cannot be embodied in this environment because it's not conducive for that. In order for me to belong, I have to contract to my own power inside myself, my own sense of safety. So my root chakra contracts. So what happens then is that there's this beautiful compensation. When a power center closes down, another one opens up. And it does so to do the job, to compensate for the lack of flow or power that's happening in that power center. So first chakra closes down, that's located at the spine, the base of the spine, the tailbone. And once it closes down, I'm disconnected from grounding into myself. And so the second chakra then starts to compensate. It compensates by blowing open. And my spirit has elevated higher in my body now, and it may remain there my entire life. It certainly can, that I can be highly developed up here and not so grounded in the root chakra, because inherently and innately, early on, I got it that my body isn't a safe place to be. I can't totally trust myself. I have to now, in my second chakra, open up and pay attention to what everybody else is feeling outside of myself in order for me to compensate in some way. Either I am going to peacekeep, I'm going to take care of other people emotionally, I'm going to be overly responsible. And there's a word for this in psychology. They call it hypervigilance. Mm-hmm. We switch into hypervigilance. And whether or not an empath from the waist up wants to be doing this or not, the body has a mind of its own. These first two chakras specifically have an operating system of their own. And one more piece I'll add to this before I pause, which is that the second chakra is the empathic power center in the body. So the job of that power center is to feel the subtle. It is to feel what's under the table. It is to be our softness, our sweetness, to be very in tune with ourselves and with the world. But we are taught just by what's modeled for us, maybe not always intentionally, maybe it was intentional, I don't know, but certainly modeled for us, that we are shamed essentially from being embodied in this area. It's a dirty area. It's bad. It's wrong. It's not okay to be connected to your emotions. It's not okay to, trust your intuition. What is that? It's better to be in reason. It's better to think for things to make sense. You better plan. Logic. You better control. Logic. So we disconnect from this area of our body. And so what ends up happening is a lot of out of control experiences in the world with energy, because we're not in it, in this area of the body, to ground and to be empowered here. And part of that work is to heal the early childhood conditioning and programming that we marinated in energetically, which I talk about in the book, and to heal what I'll call the feminine in our system, no matter the gender. Second chakra is our empathic feminine power center. Once we heal that, the chakras start to come into balance on their own.
You've just described my life. I mean, literally, and I can see as you're explaining, I can see, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. Okay, well, that makes sense. So my question to you is, Wendy, if that root chakra has been shut down, if it's closed for business and it has been for a long time, can it be opened back up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So part of it is that we become conscious to it. The root chakra is not a chakra people think about, because we don't feel it like we feel the heart. Right. And we don't feel it like we feel the gut, or, we'll have body sensations going on that will guide us in to certain areas of the body. But the root chakra is in the basement. We don't always go down to the basement, but
there's monsters down there.
There's monsters in the basement. But it's so much of our subconscious. It's so much of our hard wiring that's down there. And one of the ways that, I really encourage people to start, healing this area of the body is to really just bring your breath and your awareness to this area of the body and claim safety for yourself, despite our story. Like, I can't change my history. I can't change what happened.
Right.
But as a spiritually progressing soul, I can take my body back, and I can say, I'm coming down into this area of my body. No matter what my story is, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. I can trust myself. I am moving in. Root chakra, I'm moving in. I'm coming in. And start building consciousness and allow the flower to start to unfurl and uncontract. But we literally have to do it. We have to consciously go there.
And what can a person expect from experiencing the transformation? What opens up for them? Maybe describe that for us a little bit.
In the root chakra specifically?
Yeah.
So part of it is grounding. I think, in my experience, I'll say this, I don't want anyone, not that I control what anybody thinks or feels, but to feel shame about not being grounded, because it's a beautiful way the body compensates for something that's going on. I mean, ungrounded means that my spirit has elevated higher in my body, and essentially the consciousness of my awareness is not necessarily embodied in the lower power centers or the legs and feet. Why? Because something happens. There's maybe it was modeled. Maybe the world was the way it was. We have a lot more pavement than we do, tilling the soil. We're just not as grounded as a culture. So what happens is the spirit starts to elevate and we become high functioning there. But also a lot of our collective experiences in the world right now are inviting us, are bringing us back down into the basement to see what the shadow is that we haven't been paying attention to, that we've been stuffing down. And so the universe will certainly present opportunities for us to go back down into our humanity. And so what you can expect is when we start to ground powerfully into our legs and feet, sometimes people might feel tired. People might feel emotional initially. They might feel resistance initially. It's not necessarily meaning that something's not good about it or you shouldn't be doing it, but it's curious. Oh, interesting. I notice I start to get tired when I get grounded. The more we start to ground, the more we overcome some of those initial feelings. It's like waves we overcome, and we start to find that as I get into my root chakra, not only are my ideas and my visions and my heart, my awareness and my compassion, it not only is it inspiration that I have, but I'm actualizing it. I'm walking it in the world. I have a footprint here on this planet now. I'm living it. And we can't live it if we're disconnected from the root chakra power of the body. We're just going to dream it.
Wow. So I know in your book you offer some meditations that I think you can go to a website and actually hear some guided meditation. Am I correct there? But you can also record yourself doing it, or just read it, or have somebody else read it to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea that somebody could record. That's a great, I didn't even think of that, but yes. So so the book is, so a lot of the way I teach is cognitively and then taking people into the deeper experience. So most chapters are written that way. There's the information and the sort of the teaching of the material. And then there's taking someone through the deep healing and the embodiment of the material, because we can't always go in there through frontal cortex, through the front of the mind. We have to go in through deeper states of awareness. And so you can read the meditations. You could certainly record yourself going back, or someone reading them to you, but also there is a link, and I did record all the meditations, and there's some nice music in the background.
Nice.
So you can even just log in and listen to the meditations.
Nice. And you're right, because you also have a journaling opportunity there as well, to kind of get us in the right mindset for what we're about to do with the meditation.
Yeah.
But it is true, as you're really literally describing me, in that, as I said recently, I'm really working on getting in better touch with my energy centers. But I have found that those first two energy centers, I don't have the strong feeling. I don't recognize that and what that's supposed to feel like as much as I can, especially, in seventh energy center. I can feel that one really well. I can actually feel that happening, but I don't feel it as strong or at all in the first two energy centers. So it's making so much sense to me, because now I understand the why. I understand that that's important to be able to do. So going back and working on those particular meditations to help to open those centers up, it's going to be really important.
Yeah, one of the pieces I really address in the book is that, and I get it, I think everybody's like, even though I wrote a book and I'm an intuitive healer, I am always working on my first and second chakras. They are just areas where we carry immense history. And some of that history is intergenerational. It's come through the family line. It was never yours to begin with. It was never mine to begin with. And here we are, sort of operating with it in the world. And it's our work to overcome, to choose, to heal, to become our best selves in the world. And some of that means that we do have to go into these deeper states to clear energy that we don't want to be living with anymore in the body. And so much of the book is addressing, like, what are the types of energy that we're holding in the root chakra and the second chakra that is just, it's not our fault. Even people who feel like I've been working on this for 20 years, this issue, and then here's the mom issue again, here's the dad issue again, here's my, and sometimes it's deeper than our own human experience. It's really energy that we've come into this world with, that we also, we have capability of clearing in our system. And so, yes, in the book, I talk about that and how to clear the energy.
Is it a difficult process, Wendy, to clear it? Time takes time. Is it a long run out? I know you talked about the habit of practicing and that nobody is an expert, but does it take time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's interesting because I'll call it the wound, or the energy itself, is our best teacher, because it depends. Sometimes by clearing, here's the premise of energy healing, is that with breath and awareness directed to an area of the body, we can breathe into that area of the body and start to release the energy. And I use the image of going down the grounding cord. We literally can give the energy an exit from our body. Sometimes that concept of letting go, when someone says, well, just let go of that, we're like, how do I let go? What does that mean? Where? And so this concept of,
I was just going to say, it's like the concept of just stop. That we had a great show last week. It was just phenomenal. It's just stop. Well, how do you just stop?
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. It's even this awareness of letting go down your grounding cord. If we give the energy an exit out of our body, it does something. It literally releases the cells, the consciousness, and the imprint in the energy body, and we can let it go. And so that's one way to clear the energy. Sometimes clearing the energy means feeling. It means letting the emotion come up, whether it was the old grief that we didn't get to feel way back then, it got stuffed down, or it's the anger that got stuffed down and keeps coming up as rage. That's what suppressed anger is. It's rage, or it's, some other emotion that just needs to be felt. Sometimes it's literally, if I give it 90 seconds to breathe into that emotion, we can actually start to move the consciousness of that stuck emotion, that energy out of our body. That's some ways to work with it. But yes, you can literally just clear the energy in your body.
Is it easy to tell when you're actually starting to feel something? Because you mentioned it could be tiredness, or it could be sadness. So how do you know if that's what you're supposed to be feeling as you're clearing that center, or if it's actually resistance?
So here's my feeling about this. Whether it's tiredness or resistance, the body is doing what it needs to do around that particular clearing, and most likely it is a coping mechanism. But I like to come from the perspective of thanking the coping mechanism instead of making us wrong or shaming us for having that response. So for example, if and this happens all the time, when I guide people into deep guided healings, particularly in the lower body, they fall asleep. And so we might be working on fear. And let's say that fear someone is working with and processing was pre-verbal. They have no cognitive conscious awareness of this deep fear in their system that they were marinating in. And so when they felt that fear, when that fear was a vibrational experience to a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, they had to disconnect. They had to disassociate on some level, or they went into fight, flight, or freeze. Let's say they froze. So that was a freeze response in the body. As an adult, when we go back into healing something, we might experience the freeze again. And sometimes that freeze is the falling asleep, or it's the resistance. But to heal in the energy body, what I always say to people is we have to trust our body's way of doing it. Sometimes we need to listen to that meditation 15 times and fall asleep 15 times until the body says, during those times, I needed to go into that theta state, that deeper state of healing, to heal something on a deeper level, so that the 16th time, you won't even believe this, I was awake the whole time. Like, people will say that. Yeah. I've done this over and over again, and now I stay awake. And it's because even though they're falling asleep, they're staying with it, and healing is happening on that deeper level. So I just want to be careful. I know people, certainly in my work, do fall asleep, and other work too. Try not to shame yourself for doing it. Your body's taking care of itself, and you are healing on a deeper level. Just stay with it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe you should tell us. So your website is wendydderosa.com?
It's wendydderosa.com. I'm also the founder of the School of Intuitive Studies. So the schoolofintuitivestudies.com or wendydderosa.com.
And so that was leading to my next, I guess, whatever. The Divine Healing Circle. That's something else you do. And you're talking about the healing modality that you practice, and you invite people. Is it once a month?
Yes. So I certainly teach several things. I certainly train healers and intuitives. Separately than that, people need healing, and sometimes we need to go into deep energy healing processes. And I offer this deep guided healing once a month with a mid-month also check-in and Q&A. They're both live calls with me. And for an hour, you come in, you receive, I mean, anybody listening, you receive deep guided healing for 1 hour to clear your energy body. We have a theme we're working with every month. It's so powerful. A big community comes together. We have very deep discussions afterwards. It's wonderful.
And this is all virtual now?
It's all virtual.
Has it always been virtual, or did you have to shift to that format?
It's always been virtual. I've actually been offering it for, 17 years now, and it's transformed I used to be phone before there was video conferencing available, but now it's on Zoom.
Oh, that's awesome. So let me ask you another question about, because I listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza now and again, and he, in his meditations, he talks about healing, blessing the energy centers. Mm-hmm. So as a person new to this idea, I'm confused as to what it means to bless your energy centers. So someone like you who is very familiar with this, what would you tell me that means? What does it mean to bless your energy centers?
I would, some other words, and bless is the word I would use too. So I'll just add some other words to help define this a little more. Another way of saying it is thank your energy centers. Say hello to your energy centers. Send love to your energy centers.
An acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement.
Acknowledge them. Yeah. Bless them. And I'm not sure how he's meaning it, but I might say bless them is just, I am not making you wrong. I am seeing you. It's a bow to the energy center, honoring it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I was noticing that in some of the testimonials of your book, one of the people who raved so much about you is Corinne Zupko, who has been a guest on our show.
A couple times.
Yeah, a couple times. Of course,
the chicken lady. She loves chicken.
About anxiety and, in fact, her book is titled "Anxiety to Love: A Radical New Approach for Letting Go of Fear and Finding Lasting Peace." This is what she says about you, Wendy. She says, "Becoming an empowered empath," the name of your book, is a lifeline for anyone who has found themselves taking on the energy of others. Wendy De Rosa shows us what we can do to help maintain our energetic boundaries and therefore show up fully as a healing force in the world. I absolutely love Wendy's meditations, her journaling exercises, and her tools that are based on getting grounded in your lower chakras. This book has helped me, and I know it will help you too. So I caught eye on that really fast because of Corinne, and knowing that she's had a troubled childhood, troubled past as well. And the fact that she's saying this has really helped me is a great testimonial for everybody else. So I just wanted to point that out. Yeah. Do you know her personally?
I don't know. I know that, we have the same publisher, but I certainly, I'd certainly love to reach out.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we just have about 6 minutes, 6 minutes left. Wendy, thank you so much for showing. Is there anything we're missing? Any message that you feel compelled to put out there for our listeners today?
The only thing I would probably add that's a big part of the book is the intuition part.
I was going to ask about
just that, part of why we are healing at this very deep level is because, our intuition is our soul communicating through our consciousness, and so much of our soul is expanding and we're emerging, and there's more of our intuitive self becoming integrated into our human being, into our humanity. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing in this book is even to support that, to support you and people in trusting your intuition and allowing it to emerge. I also talk about the different types of intuition in the book too.
It's a big deal. And I'm a firm believer everybody has the ability to tune into it, but a lot of people don't because of fear. Is that what you pick up too?
Mhm.
They don't want to know, or they think of something and they know that there's probably truth behind it because our knower knows, right, Wendy?
Yeah.
Our knower
Yeah.
knows, but yet
Yeah.
they don't acknowledge it or buy into it and, like you say, stuff it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And some people, the fear is there because they did see something or they did feel things as a child and then got scared and shut it down.
Right.
You know, there's that too. Yeah, absolutely. I think that fear piece is very much a part of what's good to look at and process and heal.
So how do we help these up and coming empathic children? Because I have 4 grandchildren, and just this past weekend went to see them, and I have twin granddaughters who'll be 6 next month. And Cece is the youngest of the 2. She's the tiniest human being on the planet. She's just this little tiny
cute. She's very cute.
Very cute. But they were at a party at their neighbor's house, and it was a cold day. Saturday was a cold day. It was only about maybe 55 or something here. And the neighbor pulls out their swimming pool, takes the cover off their swimming pool. And some of these kids start getting in the pool. And here's Cece, who has absolutely no body fat on her at all. And she wants to go swimming, but she knows it's cold. But she wants to be with the other kids so badly. She gets her swimsuit on, but she tries to get in the pool, but it's freezing. The water itself is probably 50 degrees, right? And it's 50 something outside. So poor little thing, she's shivering and she's trying her hardest to get in. And I wanted to help her and say, you don't have to do this. You know, so how can I help them to feel that connection between what they really want to do and what they're being sort of talked into doing to be cool or to be one of the crowd or whatever? How can I help that situation? You know, I think, and I don't know if it exactly relates to this situation, but in those moments, it's important that children are given connection for their feelings. Even if she's sitting in a struggle, that we name, I'm so sorry, this is so difficult. Like, I know you really want to get in that pool and in yourself, you feel cold. I understand that must be difficult. That must be frustrating, disappointing, whatever the word may be, that we start to name their experience and what they're having. And I think with empathic children, it's so important that we're naming for them the emotions and allowing them to have those feelings. So it's a whole other conversation, to go into, but absolutely. I can relate. I have a 6-year-old, so she's very, very empathic, and it is about giving her permission to feel how she feels. And at the same time, how do you manage a big personality?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we just have about 3 minutes left, and it sounds like, Jackie, don't you think? It sounds like we're going to have Wendy come back because there's a lot more to talk about. We could spend another hour, I think. Thank you so much, Wendy, for showing up as you today with your great energy and your great thoughts and ideas that we threw out there for people to use on their very own life mastery journey. Check out Wendy's book. It's really cool. It will maybe open up your world, right, Wendy? It could very well. Do you have a copy of it handy? You could show it. No?
I do have a copy.
There it is.
Right here.
Yay.
There's the book. I think you can find it on Amazon. The links go to Wendy's website. It's very cool. So, Wendy, my final question. Did you have fun today?
I had a great time. Thank you both so much.
We appreciate you and you showing up. It's really, really cool. Jackie, I think back 2 years ago, and some of the things I hear you talk about and say now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what
that's
a
why I say the chakras here are wide open. It's just everything lower that's a little bit still shaky.
Wendy, for her to even mention or acknowledge chakras 2 years ago would have been off the scale. And today she's really getting in the groove. And I better up my game because she's going to pass me up here pretty soon.
Yeah, Wendy, thank you so much. I really appreciated reading your book. There's so much there that I can glean from it and will continue to do so. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
You might just see Jackie at one of your healing circles. I'll almost lay money on that one. That's about all we have time. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell a friend about it. Tell a friend about how much fun these three people, or at least these two, and then the third person, our guest, always has. We always have great topics, great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Lastly, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. And choose to check out Wendy's book.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life. For more information on Todd and his guests, visit his website at www.lifemasteryradio.net. That's www.lifemasteryradio.net.